thank you very much. So just like he said, my name is Oluwaseyi Omishade, but the short name is Shay. And Brenntag is a chemical distribution company. But by the way, is it okay if I speak English? Because I could also speak a little bit of German. I could communicate in German. So if it's okay, I speak in English, I can continue, but if not, we could do the English. English is fine, okay, good. Okay, so Brenntag is a chemical distribution company with branches all over the world. APAC, EMEA, North America, LATAM, you know, we're almost everywhere. And I work in the information security team, which has 4 pillars. And I'm in the threat prevention and management pillars as the domain lead for cloud security. The topic we're going to be discussing is a topic that we probably need a whole week to discuss, you know, but I will try to do it in 18 minutes or even less so that I could take questions if possible. So the agenda is, why do we need multi-cloud? And what are the realities of operating securely across all clouds? Security risk in multi-cloud environments, proactive security and resilience strategies and tools. So why do we need multi-cloud? Anybody wants to give a go at it?
Diversification, risk diversification.
Diversification is one. Sorry? Me? BC? Yeah. That's another one.
Availability.
That's a very important one. So, and we could keep going and going. We are going to see why we need multi-cloud. The first point I'm going to talk about here is cloud. It allows cloud flexibility. Why does it allow cloud flexibility? You want to use your Azure, maybe as a data center. You want to use your AWS to develop new technologies, perhaps because the use cases you want to use it for allows you to do that. Then you have your SAP ERP systems. Those are maybe more comfortable with Oracle, you know? So that could be a reason for you to have a multi-cloud. Another reason is that it encourages fast innovation. So let's say there is a service available on Azure, and this is not very mature. But this service is available on AWS, and it is very, very mature because it's been in use for a very long time. And you want to get to production as soon as possible, right? But then because this service available in Azure is not that mature, you don't want to use that. So it encourages faster innovation. Then you can leverage the best of all services. That's another reason why having a multi-cloud strategy is good. And just like he said, availability, geographic reach is improved. So if you're working in a company like ours, where we have branches all over the world, and you are just using a single cloud, and so how do you cater for those other regions where, today almost the big clouds have availability centers all over the world, but a few years ago that wasn't the case, So this particular aspect of it keeps evolving. Then the next thing we are going to be looking at again is the realities of operating securely across multi-clouds. First, providers' cloud-native security tools are provider-specific, mostly provider-specific. And they try to make it that way because when you are using Azure, for example, of course, you could try to integrate AWS into Microsoft Defender, but what kind of intelligence are you going to get when you have Security Hub, you have Inspector, you have, in AWS, and you also have the different one for Oracle, for GCP, and stuff like this. So these are more specific for the different cloud providers. So this is one of the realities that we as cloud security experts need to, get ourselves into. Then the process in cloud teams are different. Let me give you an example. You have Azure, you have AWS, you have Oracle, you have GCP in an organization. One thing that is certain is that you have different teams responsible for these different clouds. Then you have the information security that is sitting outside of these different teams. How do you manage going into all of these places, getting all the information you need to know when there are misconfigurations, when there is this, when you have unpatched containers or unpatched EC2 instance of virtual machines? And again, you have also these different teams using different methods. Maybe the AWS team is using, for example, Scrum. The Azure team is using Kanban. Oracle team is using Name It. How do you have to bring all of this together? And these are the realities of operating multi-cloud. Then, the complexity increases with multi-cloud. If you're dealing only with Azure, then you're dealing just with Azure. And then you can look for solutions that can help you in solving whatever issues you have in this specific cloud provider. But when you are dealing with multiple clouds, then you have to think pragmatically. How do you get across all of these without leaving any gaps? And this brings me to the next point. What are the risks? So, we talked about why the realities. These are some of the realities I had to put down here. But just because I'm aware and conscious of the time, there are thousands of them that I can talk about the whole day. Because when you work in this field, you see it every day. So then how can we manage this such risk in multi-cloud? When you have a multi-cloud, what that gives you is that you have expanded attack surface. If you're dealing only with AWS, this is the only one you're dealing with. You have some applications that are exposed to the internet, you have some that are not exposed to the internet. But then when you have applications being exposed to internet, both on AWS, Azure, GCP, name it, then you have expanded attack surface. Then there is the risk for lateral movement. But this risk is only possible when you don't have microsegmentation in place. But there is also the possibility that your Azure and AWS, they need to communicate together because you have your Active Entra ID here, and then you have AWS here. And for you to get into the AWS, you still need to go to Entra ID, which then links you back to this. So lateral movement is a must in a way, especially when you're operating in multi-cloud. But how do you manage this? We will get to that very soon. Misconfiguration across platforms. So just like the example I gave earlier, you check on Defender, it's showing some findings. Yeah? But on the same day, you still have to go to AWS Security Hub to check the findings coming out there. You still have to go to that of GCP, that of Oracle. How do you manage all of these? If you have an expanded team in the security, perhaps you could easily do that by assigning people to different platforms. But when you have limited team, you have to come up with innovative ways to manage all of these clouds together. Inconsistent identity and access management is another risk that happens across clouds. Then you have the lack of unified visibility. So in a situation where you have one pane of glass, where you can see everything, then the risk is also somehow reduced because you're not missing anything in this case because you have everything in just one single view. Compliance drift and governance challenges. What do we mean by compliance drift? You have your infrastructure as code, which you've written. You are trying to say everything that goes to your cloud goes through code. But then there is this guy that has admin access on the portal and decides to go there because he needs to do something really, really fast. And he's not using his normal sign-in, which he's supposed to use, which is not supposed to allow him to make changes on the portal. And then he did something, and then perhaps he forgot to revert. And that brings a drift when the next pipeline runs. So these are also some of the risks that happens a lot. And you have all of the governance challenges. I believe most people working in the cloud will know that there are different policies that comes aside that you try to put in place there. But when you have this powerful right, you can go change something and forget to revert. So that's one of the risks that we see there. So the next thing I'm going to talk about in the last few minutes that I have are the proactive and is proactive security and resilience. What are the strategies and tools that we can use to combat some of these items I've highlighted? First, why proactive security and resilience? Proactive means you're trying to think ahead of threat actors, or you're trying to think ahead of misconfigurations, you're trying to think ahead of every other thing that could go wrong. And the only way you could do that is that you anticipate threats before they occur. And how do you anticipate threats before they occur? You put in all of the guardrails that you need to stop threats from happening. Of course, we all know that you can put all of those guardrails in place, but maybe you missed one. And the threat actors, their job is to look for the weakness, the little gaps everywhere, and then they maximize it. But then, as security, our job is to try to stay one step ahead of them because they are working every day, just the same way we are working every day. So, in my opinion, I believe the best way to stay proactive is to anticipate threats before they occur. Withstanding and recovering from inevitable incidents. This is the part that nobody hopes to happen, but if it happens, how do you recover? How many plays have you done, to stop, to imitate the threat actors? If it happens, how many minutes do we have or hours do we have to recover? What is the blast radius and stuff like this? So having such plans in place is a way of being proactive. Then I go to the strategies and tools. In my opinion, I think one of the most important things to solve some of the challenges I spoke earlier about is have a cloud agnostic tool. Why do we need a cloud agnostic tool? This is a tool that is not owned by AWS, Azure, or GCP or whatsoever. It's just standing alone. And then you can have everything in one pane of glass. So it means you don't miss anything at all. And when you have this, then you have a cloud security posture management tool that is helping you, that is unrelated to any of these cloud providers. This is something that I believe would help any organization that is using multi-cloud or considering using multi-cloud to combat the security risk that applies to operating multi-cloud. Then automated guardrails, policy as code. When you have automated guardrails in place, then it stops people from making mistakes in a way, because when they even make this mistake, it is stopped from the source. From your pipeline, it fails because you already have this written into it. But let's say it goes through because at that point, it's not failing. Then you have your CSPM tool, which is now on the right to let you know that, okay, this guy that passed during the development period is now failing here. And then the security team can react to that and, contact the team, ask them how to fix it, tell them what they have to do, and, show them this. And also, one other thing I encourage a lot with the different teams I work with is that the security tool we use is not just for security, it's also for you. You have access to it, of course, limited access, what you need, which is still part of least privilege access, So they can go in there, they can see it, they can fix it, they can see the solution coming from the tool that they use to fix whatever is showing up there. Then there is this zero trust principles across cloud. The zero trust is a big topic now, which everybody talks about. Yes, it's easy to say, but it's not so easy to implement. In practice, you can try to implement it as much as you want, but this is something that still happens sometimes in practice. Then continuous monitoring and anomaly detection. Just like I said, no matter what you've done in the past, what you've done during your build stages, there is still the possibility that in runtime, something could still go wrong. But if you think you've done everything so right and you don't need to monitor it anymore, then I think you're in for a very, very bad surprise, because continuous monitoring is just as important as you having all of the guardrails, policy as code, whatsoever you can CSPM to. Continuous monitoring is just as important as the points I mentioned before. So disaster recovery and incident response playbook. This is something that is always very important, that you have your SOPs, that if something goes wrong, you know what you have to read, that even if you're not there, if someone with good knowledge of cloud security looks at it, he or she can read this and follow the process and get it done. Repeat the same thing to recover from whatsoever happened. Threat modeling and risk assessment. One other important thing is you try to model threats as much as possible, and then you do this also, and you perform a lot of risk assessment. This is an important part of cloud information security. So I think I am quite on time because I still have 1 minute, 50-something seconds, and I don't know if there are questions for me that we could take in the time that is left.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.